Namaskar friends. There is a province in Pakistan that is frequently in the news for incidents of violence. But the real story of the province rarely makes primetime headlines. This is a story of natural riches buried under injustice, of a people silenced for decades, and of a province that could hold the key to Pakistan's future but remains its biggest failure and biggest fault line. The province is Balochistan, that covers almost 44% of Pakistan's land area, yet it is home to only about 5% of the country's population. Balochistan is now getting international attention, but for its mineral wealth and not why it is burning. Those who hanker after its wealth would do well to realize that without knowing why it is burning and resolving the deep-rooted issues, it is unlikely that they will be able to access its wealth. I am Tilak Divesha and you are watching The Great Game Reloaded. In episode 22, I talked about rare earths and minerals. Pakistan is pitching itself as the next biggest thing as far as critical minerals are concerned, supposedly sitting on trillions of dollars of mineral wealth. And guess where this wealth is supposed to lie? In Balochistan, apart from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. This was even underlined by Army Chief Asim Munir in an event in Brussels in August 2025. Munir pointed to rare earth reserves as symbols of Pakistan's untapped potential, claiming billions in possible revenue. He mentioned the specific example of Recodec in Balochistan, gold and copper project. He said Recodec alone could generate $2 to $3 billion annually, which would increase yearly. China already has a presence in Sandak and Recodec. Recently, even the US has evinced an interest. Eric Mayer from the US State Department said, and I quote, "President Trump has made it clear that securing diverse and reliable sources of these materials is a strategic priority. Pakistan's vast mineral potential, if responsibly and transparently developed, can benefit both our countries." Unquote. Thus, there is potential of a war of resources between the US and China. In the process, it is the poor Baloch and Pashtuns that could face a renewed wave of brutalization as their rights get trampled over and their wealth gets stolen without any benefit to them. The international community would have to ensure that if mineral wealth is discovered, the Baloch and the Pashtuns get their fair share and are part of the process. Else, more than minerals, there is likely to be unrest and turmoil. But will the international community, especially the US, pay attention to why Balochistan has been on the boil since 1948? Let's take a closer look. Balochistan presents a mosaic of conflicts and fault lines with multiple layers of violence. It has been described as quote-unquote an edgy place, quote-unquote a boiling cauldron of ethnic, sectarian, secessionist and militant violence threatening to boil over at any time. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan likened the situation, quote, to an active volcano that may erupt any time with dire consequences. The situation is alarming and worsening by the day, unquote. The one common thread that runs through the history of Balochistan since 1948 is that the Baloch have frequently broken out in rebellion against the state. Here's the interesting thing. Every rebellion has lasted longer than the previous one. Every rebellion has encompassed a wider geographical area than the previous one, and every rebellion has involved more Baloch than the previous one. The current fifth insurgency started in 2004 and has been continuing since then despite everything that the Pakistan Army has thrown against it. This must say something about the legitimacy of the Pakistan state in the eyes of the Baloch. But why is Balochistan bleeding? Why is it a lingering problem, a festering sore for Pakistan? The reason is that of all the conflicts in the province, the most enduring and bitter one has been that between the Baloch nationalists and the state. This has been continuing in some form or the other ever since Pakistan's forcible accession in 1948 of the princely state of Kalat, as most of Balochistan was then called. In episode 3, I had discussed the historical aspects of Balochistan's forced accession to Pakistan. The Baloch narrative is that they were an independent people who were betrayed and occupied. They continue to have indelible historical memories of being independent, and their wounds have deepened due to the injustices the people feel that they have undergone since they were forced to accede to Pakistan. The feeling has festered that the federal government, dominated by Punjab, has systematically colonized their province by exploiting their vast natural resources. When the Baloch compares himself with his counterparts in other provinces, especially Punjab, he asks, rightly, what has he gained from being a part of Pakistan? As the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan cautioned in 2009, and I quote, "The sense of deprivation and suppression is deep-rooted in Baloch nationalist identity. The establishment's failure to negotiate and compensate further isolates a population that has long put up with armed and aggressive tactics to curb the struggle for their rights." Unquote. What do the Baloch want? Some want independence, like Brahmadag Bukti, who says Pakistan should leave our homeland. Others demand greater provincial autonomy, control over their resources, jobs for locals, and respect for their culture. The most glaring symbol of exploitation is Sui gas. Natural gas was discovered in Sui, Dera Bukti, in the 1950s. For decades, bulk of Pakistan's natural gas was supplied from here. However, the Baloch have failed to benefit from their gas deposits. In fact, Balochistan consumes only 17% of its gas, while 83% is provided to the rest of the country. Until the mid-1990s, even Dera Bukti, the very district with Sui gas fields, did not have gas connections. In Punjab, 97% of the urban population has gas. In Balochistan, only 41%. This is what exploitation looks like. And it gets worse. For decades, Balochistan was paid lower royalties for its gas than Sindh or Punjab because prices were calculated using provincial incomes from 1953. Thus, for decades, Balochistan lost out even on royalty. Imagine your salary today being decided by what your city earned 70 years ago. According to a Pakistani economist, between 1965 and 2015, resources worth rupees 7 trillion, yes, rupees 7 trillion were extracted from Balochistan and the benefits ploughed into Punjab and Karachi, leaving the Baloch dirt poor. Imagine rupees 7 trillion being extracted from the province for use in other parts of the country. Not surprisingly, Baloch interpret the disparity between the value of gas produced in Balochistan and the poverty of the province as a consequence of their exploitation by outsiders. The last straw for the Baloch was the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. It was billed as a game changer for Pakistan. The Baloch were told it would be a game changer for them too, that they would prosper. Instead, the Baloch watched Chinese companies and Punjabi contractors take their land and jobs, raising fears of becoming a minority in their own province. Gwadar, the so-called jewel of CPEC, is built with minimal Baloch involvement. Even poor Baloch fishermen have been evicted from their traditional fishing grounds. In addition to Sui gas, beneath the vast expanse of the province lies enormous wealth. Copper and gold mines in Rekodek and Sandak, coal deposit worth billions, 2/3 of Pakistan's coastline with the deep sea port of Gwadar. Despite these riches, why is Balochistan the poorest province in Pakistan? This is because development itself has different meanings for the Baloch and the federal government. For the Baloch, development is linked with the creation of employment opportunities and consequent improvement in their standard of living. For Pakistan, development means obtaining Balochistan's mineral wealth and to expedite the development of the Gwadar port and CPEC. Thus, its riches have done nothing for the Baloch people. They live in a land where 70% of children are out of school, 52% are stunted due to malnutrition. Of the 10 highest deprived districts of Pakistan, 9 are from Balochistan. 13 most underfed districts in Pakistan are from Balochistan. Maternal mortality is 3 times the national average, comparable to Somalia. Yes, Somalia, let that sink in. And what about human rights? The most tragic element of the situation is the massive human rights violations that Pakistan has carried out with impunity. Thousands of Baloch youth have been forcibly disappeared. Students, activists, professors, doctors, engineers. Many return as dead bodies, tortured, bullet-ridden. This is called kill and dump. The state narrative is that it is only a few tribal sardars causing trouble to protect their feudal privileges. But the reality is starkly different. If it were just tribal chiefs, why do urban youth, students, teachers, doctors, engineers, people who never benefited from sardars, support the insurgency? Because for them, it is a fight for identity, for dignity, for rights, and for what it means to be a Baloch. Unlike the past tribal insurgencies, today the insurgency is led by educated middle-class youth, supported by Baloch women and children, spread from mountains to urban districts like Gwadar, Turbat and Pajgor. But Islamabad sees all as threats. Why does Pakistan fear Baloch nationalism so much? Because it exposes the original flaw in its statehood, the belief that Islam could bind diverse ethnicities. Bangladesh shattered that myth in 1971. Balochistan keeps reminding Pakistan that religion is not enough when people's rights are trampled. Jinnah's concept that Islam provided the glue for the divergent nationalities that came to constitute Pakistan came a cropper because in the areas that came to constitute Pakistan, there were historical states with significant linguistic, cultural and ethnic diversities. Here people instinctively thought of themselves as Bengalis, Baloch, Pashtuns, Seraikis and Sindhis rather than as Pakistanis. What has been the role of the international community? The world has largely remained silent, too busy leveraging Pakistan for strategic purposes in Afghanistan or counter-terrorism and now for Iran, perhaps. Resultantly, international outcry has remained weak. Could this be changing? Recently, voices have started reaching beyond Pakistan. The US Congress has held hearings on Balochistan. European Parliament debates have highlighted abuses. Posters demanding freedom have appeared in Geneva, London and New York. Dr. Marang Baloch, leader of the movement protesting missing persons, has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. What of the future? This is the 5th insurgency since 1948. It began in 2004. Each time the Baloch have risen, Islamabad has responded militarily. It hasn't talked to the people to try and understand their grievances. Increasingly, Pakistan's army is finding it difficult to outfight the Baloch rebels. In any case, it cannot outlast the people fighting for their dignity and their land. The insurgency continues despite military crackdowns because it is rooted in a quest for rights and for justice. As the International Crisis Group says, and I quote, "The military can retain control over Balochistan's territory through sheer force, but it cannot defeat an insurgency that has local support." Unquote. Since Islamabad continues to treat Balochistan as a colony to be exploited rather than as a stakeholder to be respected, it could lose more than just resources. It could risk legitimacy as a state in which minorities can live and prosper. So what is the way forward? Military force alone will not break Baloch resistance. The people want dignity, autonomy and development on their terms. They want an end to missing persons. Without this, the insurgency will simmer for decades, draining Pakistan's resources and its global image. In a future episode, I will talk about the current insurgency and the possibility of the establishment of an independent Balochistan. Let me end with an anecdote. The second insurgency broke out in 1958. Its leader was the 80-year-old Nawab Noroz Khan Zeri, the Sardar of the Zaraksai tribe of the Kalat region. On 19th May 1959, Noroz Khan, along with his fighters, surrendered after the authorities swore on the Quran to accept their demands. The army, however, dishonored its solemn pledge on the Quran. Noroz Khan and his companions were arrested, tried by a special military court, and sentenced to death on 7th July 1960. The Nawab's eldest son, along with 6 colleagues, were hanged. Noroz Khan, due to his advanced age, and his minor son were imprisoned for life. After they had been hanged, the authorities sadistically requested the aged Noroz Khan to identify the bodies. "Is this one of your sons?" an army officer cold-heartedly asked the old warrior as he pointed to the body of the elderly warrior's son. Noroz Khan stared at the soldier for a moment, then replied quietly, quote, "All these brave young men are my sons," unquote. Then, looking at the faces of his dead supporters, he noticed that the moustache of one of them had drooped in death. He went over to the body and tenderly curled the moustache upwards while gently admonishing, and I quote, "Even in death, my son, one should not allow the enemy to think, even for one moment, that you have despaired," unquote. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment. See you soon with another episode and another anecdote. Till next time, I am Tilak Devesha. Namaskar and Jai Hind.